Hi guys, welcome back for another video. I just wanted to do a quick video on 5 reasons to invest in cryptocurrencies versus stocks and ETFs. Now that doesn't mean I'm saying that you should only invest in cryptos and not invest in stocks and ETFs. I just believe that you should definitely allocate at least a tiny percent of your portfolio into cryptocurrency. And here's some reasons why. First, the low trading fees. Now, that can be mistaken because Bitcoin, people tend to think of Bitcoin right away, and Bitcoin has really high transaction fees, probably more than most stock trading platforms. For instance, I use Scottrade, which is currently being bought by TD Ameritrade for my stock end of the deal, and they charge about $7 per trade. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it starts adding up, especially if you try to do day trading. I don't really recommend that, but when I first started investing a couple years ago, I definitely tried that. Worked out okay. I made some money, and I also lost some money, so it's kind of hard to find where the break-even point is with that, but that's getting a little off topic. So, yeah, trading fees being $7. If you go to trade Bitcoin right now at its lowest, I think it's about $7. If you do anything less than that, you're just going to sit there with unconfirmed transactions, so you don't want to do that. However, if you do just about any other altcoin, in almost no situation will get anywhere near that. Costs like fractions of pennies to trade like Denarius or Verge coin. It is extremely cheap, tiny percentages to actually trade, which is amazing because it'll save you a lot of money in the long run, especially if you're doing active trading, which some people do. Like I said before, with cryptocurrency, it's more worth it than with traditional stocks just because of the volatility. You have a lot more chance to gain money, but you also have a lot of chances to lose more money that way because it's, one bad news in one country and it sends the stocks plummeting. I'm sure you guys know that by now. So that's the first reason why I think that you should invest at least a little bit in crypto. The other reason is that it's very similar to early stock markets. Before the stock market really became overregulated. It's not to say I don't think that you need regulation. You definitely need regulation, but it got to the point in the stock market where it's just overly regulated. They just want to make sure that people aren't manipulating prices and stuff. But when it boils down to it, that's really what money is: manipulating prices. And convincing people to pay something that it might not be necessarily worth, or vice versa, selling for something that it might not be necessarily worth. Now, with the stock market in mind, if you're buying companies, you're buying them at future growth value, the PE. I can't remember what it stands for off the top of my head, but what it means is that it's potential earnings. So, if a company's making, $3 per every value of its share, then that would be that's what its earnings are now. But what people are buying them off of and where their market valuation is usually about 10 times the amount that they're actually making, which is really scary because if you think about it, like 10 times the growth, you don't know how long that's actually going to take to ever become a reality. So if something were to happen where people needed to cash out actual money at that time, and all of those stocks aren't actually worth what people are paying for them, then you're going to get a huge correction. And that's something I see happening in the next 6 months. I see a big correction happening probably in the summer. I don't know for sure. Do your own due diligence and research. Don't just take my word for it. There's a lot of speculation and not a ton of evidence behind that, but for that reason, I still would say that at least having a little bit of cryptocurrency, invested in a little bit of cryptocurrency is good because it's really not that regulated. I don't suggest that you try to do tax evasion or anything like that. Report what you're making, but it still will be a lot less headache than going through all of what comes along with stocks, and if it crashes and it goes into Chapter 11 and then you have to do all that. So you don't have to worry about that. If a cryptocurrency goes under, well, you might, you're out of luck, but you don't have to worry about going through all the lawyers and stuff. Now there's much more potential growth, risk versus reward, especially in cryptocurrencies right now. Stock market, I had a couple of really solid investments. I don't always buy individual stocks, but I do occasionally. And earlier on in the year, last year, 2016, I bought Alibaba, Boeing, and Adobe, and they ran up unbelievable. They were the best, pretty much the best performers in the market. And what's funny about that is it came nowhere near how much cryptocurrency percentage went up. So if I would have taken that same amount of money and put it into Bitcoin or any altcoin, really, actually, if the altcoins would have, technically by a percentage standpoint, they had blown up more than Bitcoin did, at least some of them. And so the risk versus reward there was, well, when I started investing, Boeing is not going anywhere, obviously, but some of the cryptocurrency, even Bitcoin, early 2016, when it was under $1,000, and people were like, that's insane, it's never gonna, it shouldn't be that high to begin with. So I didn't really put a lot of money into it. I think it was like a couple $100. It's like, well, I figure if I lose that, it's not a big deal. Not where I was putting thousands of dollars into a more solid company. So there's a risk versus reward, definitely with cryptocurrency. If you're willing to take a little bit of risk, you can potentially have a life-changing reward from that. Now, I don't recommend gambling. You never want to actually put more money into something than you can afford to lose. Just whatever you decide, if you decide to buy into cryptocurrency, just make sure that at the end of the day you're okay with losing it, because it could happen. I mean, that can happen in the stock market too, but it can happen a lot easier in cryptocurrency. The other reason, I think, the fourth reason that I'm on, I think that because of the technology and being able to stay in control of your own money, and the fact that it has the open ledger blockchain, very important aspects of it. You don't have to worry about people trying to hide their money. Now individually they can hide it, but it has to be reported on the open blockchain so you can see if there's going to be price manipulation and price gouges. If you really want to delve into it and investigate, you can look at every wallet that Bitcoin has, and you can see how much is in specific wallets. Now there's ways around that, and I get that you can just open up multiple wallets and things of that nature, but if you're holding hundreds of thousands of Bitcoins, you're not gonna you're gonna want them spread out, but you're not gonna want them spread out too much, because then who's in control of your money, really? And but for that reason, the technology is way more advanced in cryptos than in stocks. Now there's some weird comparisons there, because now a lot of these publicly traded companies are investing in some sort and form of blockchain, and so that's a less risky way for you to invest in them. Cryptocurrency, you could do that, but at the same time, and it'll add to the valuation of the company you're buying, but you're still not really technically owning the currency. For instance, and I know there's a couple companies, I think Hooters was one, and I can't remember, there's some big name brands, IBM is in blockchain now too, but if you were to buy, let's say, Hooters, for instance, and they end up coming up with their own cryptocurrency, and you own stocks in Hooters, I don't know if that they're necessarily going to give you Hooters cryptocurrency as a form of dividend or something like that, and if they don't, well, then I don't know that the valuation of the company's price should be influenced by the cryptocurrency, because that's a separate market. And that's a whole nother issue that is really on the brink right now. It's so new that nobody really knows what's going to happen with that, but as time goes on, it'll be interesting to see how that works. If Hooters comes up with their own cryptocurrency, well, that cryptocurrency might be worth, I don't know, let's say 50 million or 100 million. Now, why would that be influenced in the price stock of Hooters itself, unless it was actually paid out in dividends or something like that? But we'll see what goes on with that. That'll be interesting. But that's another reason I think you should invest directly in cryptocurrency, because even if they do come up with their own coin, you should buy the coin, at least allocate some of your money to buy a percent of that coin. And the last reason, and I think this is the most important, at least personally, I think this is the whole reason I got into it, was the security and the transactions being decentralized, and I guess the anonymity of it, being anonymous is kind of okay. I mean, I think if you're trying to hide stuff, you shouldn't. I mean, I don't think you should, but at the same time, you got to respect people's privacy. So if they want to buy something and they don't want everybody to know what they're buying, then I think you should have that option. Now, if it's like, obviously for terrorist reasons or anything like that, and national security reasons, I think that would be something, where we could have some problems, which is why I like at least the open aspect of the blockchain, where you can see where the money's moving and how much is moving. You can't necessarily see what they're buying with it, but at least you can see where it's going. And then if there were any major issues, you'd be able to kind of figure out what was going on by what area all that money was moving. But the security part of it being decentralized is awesome. I really believe in GPU mining. Now, you could say, well, that's because you own a bunch of GPUs. Well, certainly I do. But I own them because I went through the whole process. Should I buy an ASIC? Should I buy graphics cards? And in reality, it didn't just boil down to this, but this was a big decision maker, is the fact that, well, graphics cards have multi-use purposes. If something happens to them, well, if something happens to cryptocurrency, well, I can just sell them off to gamers, and I would keep a couple of them because I love gaming myself. Now, I did buy an ASIC power supply, but I never actually bought the ASIC. I never pulled the trigger on buying the ASIC. Now, the problem with ASICs is that they're just farms. People have just farms of them. If it were going to be decentralized and keep to the core values of Bitcoin, I could see that as a good thing. But these companies hoard mass quantities of them, and it takes away from the decentralization. And the problem with not having the blockchain decentralized is that if attack goes down on any one of those main buildings, it could potentially bring down the network in a really bad way. It would be really bad, not just like losing internet for a little bit. That would ruin a lot of things. And so I'm a strong believer in the decentralization, and also not only because of that, but it gives power to the people. That's the bottom line. You want people to be able to have power and control over their own money, not living impoverished. And this gives a great way across the entire world if you just take a little bit of time out and figure out how to do stuff. The means to be able to help out, especially in countries where the government failed them as far as we have fiat currencies falling through, and they didn't feel comfortable storing their value of money in the currency of the fiat, so people bought Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And that's like another thing too. It's so embedded now in the world and in the economy. Even if it does take huge hits because the country's trying to outlaw them and stuff, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's so embedded in there. It's not going to go anywhere. And the more that like a government is trying to tell you not to do something, there's probably a good reason, especially I should clarify, in a country where it's a dictatorship. If they're trying to tell you not to do something, there's probably a good reason why, and it's because it's giving money back to the people, and they don't want that. But that's another reason I think you should invest in cryptocurrencies. I think it's a strong argument, at least to put a little tiny percentage in there. If you have a little bit extra money and you're willing to lose something, I strongly recommend doing it, because the rewards can truly pay off in the long run. Thanks again for watching my video, guys. If you have any questions, give me a comment, and make sure you like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.